Welcome to another episode of Inside the Future.
Glad to be here.
So I want you to picture something for a second. Just imagine you just got off a really long, exhausting cross-country flight.
Oh, we all know that feeling.
Right. You're dragging your suitcase down that endless carpeted hallway. You finally swipe your key card, and you step into this beautiful, completely spotless hotel room.
It's the best feeling.
It really is. The air conditioning is humming, the pillows are perfectly fluffed, and everything just appears completely tranquil. So you lock the door behind you, kick off your shoes, unpack a bit, maybe take a hot shower, and just collapse onto the mattress to decompress.
They feel like an immediate sense of sanctuary, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Shutting that door on the outside world after a brutal day of travel
Yeah.
is just a very specific kind of relief.
Yes, it's your private sanctuary. But now, and this is where it gets dark, I want you to imagine that someone you have absolutely never met has been watching you that entire time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from the exact moment you unzipped your suitcase to the moment you got out of the shower.
Which just completely shatters that illusion of safety. I mean, it sounds like the premise of a psychological thriller.
It does. It really sounds like fiction. But as our sources for this deep dive reveal, this is a very real, very disturbing reality globally right now.
Yeah, it's becoming incredibly common.
It is. Hidden cameras inside hotel rooms, short-term rentals, and even cruise ship cabins, they've become an epidemic. So today, our mission is explicitly tailored for those of you who travel alone or who are just constantly on the road for work or leisure.
Which is a huge portion of people listening, I'm sure.
Exactly. We are going to arm you with the knowledge to maintain your personal security and protect your absolute right to privacy. And importantly, we're going to do all of this without causing unnecessary travel anxiety.
Right, because the overarching goal here is empowerment. We want to replace paranoia with preparation.
I love that. Preparation over paranoia. So let's start by unpacking how we even got here in the first place. Checking into a modern hotel room today is, it's almost like unknowingly stepping onto a digital stage.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
The audience is completely invisible, but the threat of exposure is very real. And to understand the scale of this, we really have to look at the technology itself because we are talking about a massive yet physically shrinking threat.
Yeah, the miniaturization of surveillance technology is really the core driver here. I mean, over the last decade, the smartphone industry poured billions into making camera sensors and lenses smaller, cheaper, and just way more efficient.
Right, for our phones.
Exactly. And that supply chain innovation, it just trickled down into the consumer electronics market. The surveillance devices we see today are a direct byproduct of that.
And the accessibility is what really jumped out at me from the sources. I think when people imagine hidden cameras, they picture, bulky, obvious security equipment with glowing red lights and a massive tangle of wires.
Like a bank security camera from the 90s?
Exactly. But today, literally anyone with an internet connection can buy a miniature Wi-Fi camera for less than $30.
It's terrifyingly cheap. And we were talking about lenses no larger than a coin. The actual camera aperture, the little hole that lets light into the sensor, can be smaller than the head of a screw.
Which is insane. And they aren't just taking grainy black and white photos either, right? Yeah. These tiny devices can stream high-definition 4K live footage directly to a smartphone on the other side of the planet.
Or they can just record continuously onto a micro SD card for days on end.
Right. It has become so cheap and so small that detecting them with the naked eye is a real challenge. But realistically, and I think this is what everyone wonders, who is actually doing this?
That's the big question.
It sounds like James Bond villain territory. Are we really saying sophisticated international hackers are targeting random business travelers at a roadside motel?
Well, you would naturally assume it takes a sophisticated operation, but that is actually a really dangerous misconception.
Interesting.
Yeah, the reality is much more mundane, which is honestly what makes it so pervasive. You do not need to be a master hacker to plug in a $30 device.
Yeah.
The barrier to entry for this kind of surveillance is essentially zero.
Wow. Okay, so our sources list the typical culprits, and it almost always comes down to people who already have direct physical access to these rooms.
The insiders.
Yeah. We were talking about property owners, cleaning personnel, maintenance workers, or even just previous guests who deliberately leave something behind. Sometimes it's simply an unauthorized intruder who slipped in when a side door was propped open.
And their motives are highly varied, too. I mean, some of this is driven by pure financial gain. There's this sprawling dark market out there where criminals sell these secretly recorded, highly private videos.
That makes my stomach turn.
I know. And in other instances, it's driven purely by voyeurism, just the psychological gratification of secretly watching an unsuspecting victim.
And then in the absolute worst-case scenarios, the recordings are captured to be used later for extortion or blackmail.
Especially if the victim is a corporate traveler or a public figure.
Yeah.
But, this brings up a major point of confusion for a lot of people. If I am paying a massive corporate hotel chain for a secure room and I find a camera, aren't they legally responsible for my privacy?
It totally feels like that should be a straightforward yes. But the legal landscape surrounding hospitality privacy is a massive gray area.
Really? How so?
Well, the sources explain that a hotel is typically only liable if they had what the law calls constructive knowledge of the hazard.
Okay, break that concept down for me, because constructive knowledge sounds like a very convenient legal loophole for the hospitality industry.
It is a really tricky hurdle for plaintiffs. Constructive knowledge essentially means the law assumes you knew about a hazard because any reasonable person in your position should have noticed it.
Okay, give me an example.
So, for example, if a pipe bursts in the lobby and creates a massive puddle, the hotel has constructive knowledge of a slipping hazard. They should see it, right? It's right there.
Right, obviously.
But if a rogue employee or a previous guest secretly plants a microscopic camera inside an air vent, a hotel manager has no idea it's there.
Ah, because a standard cleaning crew who is just turning over a room in 30 minutes wouldn't reasonably be expected to dismantle the air vents or unscrew the alarm clock to look for a device.
Precisely. The hotel's duty of care is limited by what they can reasonably detect during normal operations. If they couldn't reasonably know it was there, it is incredibly difficult to hold the corporate entity legally liable in civil court.
Which means the liability loophole dictates that travelers simply cannot rely solely on the hospitality industry for their protection.
Yes, exactly. Personal awareness is no longer just a good idea. It is a mandatory part of modern travel. The burden of protection basically falls entirely on you. So we have to start looking at our hotel rooms through the eyes of the perpetrator.
Yeah, it really requires reverse engineering the crime. I mean, if someone is placing a camera, they have to calculate where it serves them best.
Right. Criminals place these cameras where they can capture the absolute widest possible view of your most vulnerable moments while still remaining completely unnoticed. Naturally, the danger zones are the bathrooms and the bedrooms.
Because those areas provide the highest value footage for blackmail or voyeurism.
Exactly. But they can't just tape a camera to the drywall, right? They need disguises.
Which is where everyday objects come into play. A hidden camera is useless if it looks out of place.
So the sources outline some incredibly mundane hiding spots. We're talking tissue boxes, decorative plants, air purifiers, coat hooks on the back of the bathroom door, picture frames, Wi-Fi routers.
It's almost endless.
It really is. Think about a criminal planting a hidden camera the same way you would think about a real estate agent staging a home for a photo shoot.
Oh, that's a great analogy. So a real estate agent stands in the corner of a room calculating the angles, looking at the sight lines, trying to figure out how to get the most unobstructed wide-angle view of the space to show off the floor plan.
Right. A bad actor is doing the exact same geometry, just for a sinister purpose. They're looking for a vantage point that gives them a clear, sweeping shot of the bed or the shower. It has to be high enough or angled well enough that it won't be blocked if a guest, randomly tosses a jacket over a chair or drops their luggage on the floor.
And they also face a major logistical hurdle, which is power. A Wi-Fi camera transmitting high-definition video requires a continuous energy source.
Right, because batteries die.
Exactly. A tiny battery powering a lens and a Wi-Fi chip will run out in a matter of hours.
I actually like to think of these hidden cameras like remora fish. Those little parasites that latch onto sharks.
Oh, yeah.
The camera is too small to sustain itself on battery life, so it has to latch onto a larger host for survival. Criminals love to hide them in things that are already plugged into the wall.
Ah, like power adapters, USB charging blocks, digital alarm clocks, maybe television frames.
Yes. If the object is already wired for electricity, it is the perfect host for a parasitic camera to leach continuous power from.
Understanding that psychology, the need for a wide vantage point and the need for continuous power is just crucial. And translating that understanding into action is the next step.
And this is exactly where we transition from the threat to the actual solution. We're going to outline the 5-step sweep our sources provide. And again, the mantra we want you to internalize is, privacy isn't paranoia, it is preparation.
I love framing it as preparation because it normalizes the behavior. It makes it just another mundane step in your check-in process, really no different than verifying the Wi-Fi password or unpacking your toiletries.
Exactly. So step 1 of the sweep is very simple. Slow down. The sources recommend taking just 2 minutes before you unpack a single bag to simply observe the room.
Just kind of take it all in.
Yeah, stand at the doorway, take a breath, and scan the space. Look for anything unusual or structurally out of place. And the most powerful filtering question you can ask yourself is, does this object genuinely need to be facing the bed?
Right. It forces you to evaluate the logic of the room. If a decorative plant is angled strangely toward the mattress, or maybe a tissue box on the vanity is deliberately rotated to face the shower instead of the sink that breaks the pattern of normalcy, it deserves a closer look.
Once you've done that initial visual sweep, you move to step 2, which is turn off the lights. A lot of these hidden cameras utilize infrared LEDs for night vision.
Oh, so they can keep recording crystal clear video even when the room is pitch black.
Exactly. Now, the human eye is completely blind to infrared light as it sits just outside our visible spectrum. But the image sensor inside your smartphone camera can actually perceive it.
That is such a good trick.
It is. With the room completely dark, you just open your smartphone camera and slowly pan it around the room, focusing on any suspicious objects. If there is an active infrared light emitting from a hidden camera, it will often show up on your phone screen as a faint, glowing purple or white dot. It is a brilliant, free tool you already have in your pocket.
It is worth pointing out a little technical nuance here, though. Not all phone cameras filter infrared light the exact same way.
Oh, really? Tell me about that.
So manufacturers usually install an IR cut filter on the rear-facing cameras of modern smartphones to prevent infrared light from distorting the colors in your everyday daytime photos.
Okay.
However, they often omit that filter on the front-facing selfie camera, either to save space, cut costs, or to assist with facial recognition features. So if you're doing this sweep, use the front-facing selfie camera. It is generally much more sensitive to infrared light.
Wow, that is a phenomenal tip. I didn't know that about the selfie camera. Okay, so step 3 focuses on the bathroom. Check the mirrors. And our sources take time here to explicitly debunk a very popular internet myth.
Oh, let me guess. The fingernail test.
Yes. If you spend time on social media, you have probably seen the fingernail test, where you touch your fingernail to the glass to see if there's a gap between your finger and its reflection.
Right. The prevailing theory online is that if there is a gap, it is a normal mirror. But if your fingernail touches its reflection directly, it's a two-way mirror.
Yeah, well, the sources emphasize that this test is just wildly unreliable. To understand why, we really have to look at how mirrors are manufactured. Everyday household mirrors are usually second surface mirrors, meaning the reflective silver coating is painted on the back of the glass.
Okay, so that layer of glass is what creates the visual gap.
Exactly. But a two-way mirror is just a piece of glass with a much thinner, semi-transparent reflective coating. If a manufacturer puts that thin coating on the back of a thick piece of glass, you will still see a gap, even though it is a two-way mirror.
Wow. Furthermore, two-way mirrors rely entirely on lighting differentials to work, right?
Yeah.
The observation room behind the mirror has to be completely dark, while the bathroom you are standing in has to be brightly lit.
Yep.
So if you turn off the bathroom lights and shine your phone flashlight against the glass, you would see straight through a two-way mirror anyway, regardless of any fingernail test.
Exactly. So what you should do instead is look for structural anomalies. Don't worry about fingernail gaps. Ask yourself, does the mirror appear unusually thick? Does it look like it was oddly installed, perhaps sitting flush against a hollow wall? Or most importantly, are there any tiny unexplained holes in the frame holding the mirror?
You are looking for physical modifications, not optical illusions.
Perfect way to put it. Okay, step 4 is the major focus area. Inspect the electronics. Because we know these cameras are parasitic and need continuous power, devices plugged into the wall deserve your utmost attention.
You have to ask critical questions about the environment.
Yes. Why is this specific USB charging block positioned perfectly at chest level, pointing straight at the pillows? Why is the digital alarm clock aimed directly at the bed instead of slightly upward toward the center of the room?
Or, why does this one specific smoke detector directly over the bed look slightly different from the smoke detectors out in the hallway?
Right. If a smoke detector has a weird dark circle on the plastic casing that the others don't, or if a power adapter seems excessively bulky and heavy for its function, you need to investigate it. Simply taking 10 seconds to look closely at the seams, the faceplates, and the speaker grills of everyday electronics is usually enough to spot the reflection of a tiny camera lens.
Provided you know you should be looking for it.
Exactly. And that brings us to step 5, which our sources recommend for the true road warriors. If you spend half the year living out of hotels, you can leverage technology to fight technology.
Yeah, dedicated hidden camera detectors have become incredibly affordable consumer items. You can easily carry one in your toiletry bag. And there are generally 2 types. The first is a radio frequency or RF detector.
How does that one work?
Well, because a Wi-Fi camera has to transmit packets of data over a network, it emits radio frequencies, usually on the 2.4 or 5 gigahertz bands. An RF sweeper basically scans for those invisible transmission spikes.
So it's listening for the data.
Right. If you wave the detector near a bedside lamp and it starts beeping wildly, it means something inside that lamp is actively broadcasting a wireless signal.
That makes total sense. Now, the second type is a lens finder. These devices emit a very specific, rapid-flashing red LED light. You look through a specialized tinted viewfinder on the device, and you sweep the room.
And that catches the reflection of the glass, right?
Yes, because camera lenses are made of curved glass. They're highly reflective. The red light bounces back off the curvature of the hidden lens, creating a glaringly obvious bright red dot in your field of vision, even if the camera is completely powered off.
That's amazing. But I do want to address the solo traveler listening to this right now who is already utterly exhausted from a long flight. Integrating a 5-step sweep sounds like, well, it sounds like work.
It does.
How do you do this without letting travel anxiety dictate your entire trip? Because looking at every single alarm clock and tissue box with deep suspicion sounds mentally exhausting.
I know, it is a completely valid concern, but I want you to think about it this way. Doing the sweep takes exactly 2 minutes. Taking 2 extra minutes before you unpack to inspect your surroundings is a minor routine that can prevent literally years of emotional distress and violation.
It's a small investment for a big return.
Yeah. I compare it to putting on your seatbelt when you get into a car. You don't put on your seatbelt because you are consumed by the terrifying anxiety of a fiery crash, right? You do it because it is a smart, automated 2-second habit that protects you.
Privacy isn't paranoia. It is preparation.
Exactly. Once those 2 minutes are up and the room is clear, you can completely drop your guard and truly relax.
The peace of mind actually enhances your ability to relax. But, okay, we have to address the absolute worst-case scenario. You do your 2-minute sweep.
Yeah.
And you actually find a camera hidden in the air purifier. What is the immediate protocol?
Your adrenaline is going to spike, obviously, so we need to be incredibly clear on the discovery protocol. First and foremost, keep your composure. Do not panic. Second, do not touch, cover, or remove the device under any circumstances.
This is so important. You are essentially standing in the middle of a crime scene. You do not want your fingerprints on that device compromising the physical evidence.
Right.
Furthermore, you do not want to alert the person watching the live feed that they've been discovered by tampering with their equipment.
Preserving the chain of evidence is everything. So instead of touching it, pull out your smartphone and take clear, well-lit photographs of the device exactly as you found it. Then, record a continuous video showing where it is located in the room. Zoom in on the device, and then pan around to show exactly what intimate areas of the room the lens is pointing at.
Just document everything.
Yes, and once you have that evidence secured on your own device, gather your belongings and leave the room immediately.
Yeah. Do not wait around in the room for security to arrive.
Get your luggage and get out. Go straight to the lobby and notify hotel management immediately. But, and this is key, do not stop there. The sources are adamant that you must contact local law enforcement yourself to file a formal police report.
Because you can't just trust the hotel to do it.
Exactly. You cannot rely on hotel management to call the police on your behalf, as corporate entities may be motivated to handle the situation internally to avoid a public relations nightmare.
Wow, yeah, that's a really good point.
Finally, demand a completely new room on a different floor, or honestly, if you feel unsafe, leave the property entirely and book elsewhere.
Having that police report and your own photographic evidence is just critical if you need to pursue civil or criminal legal action down the line. And, broadening the scope of our discussion here, this protocol reflects a much bigger picture. This is no longer just an isolated hotel problem.
No, it's really not. The sources make a point to highlight that this is rapidly becoming a massive societal challenge regarding how we navigate physical spaces in general.
Because as artificial intelligence becomes more deeply integrated into cheap consumer technology, the very nature of surveillance changes. These are no longer just dumb cameras recording hours of empty rooms onto a memory card.
Right.
Modern microcameras can utilize onboard processing to automatically detect human shapes. They can recognize specific voices.
They can essentially remain completely dormant, saving battery life, and then send a push notification to a voyeur smartphone the absolute second you walk into the frame.
It's wild. They're actively monitoring the environment and streaming live video across continents with virtually zero latency.
It's a paradigm shift in how we define physical security. Historically, the perimeter of your safety was the deadbolt on the door. But today, the perimeter includes the invisible data transmitting out of the room through the walls.
Yeah, protecting your digital and personal space in today's connected world has really become just as essential and, frankly, just as routine as physically locking your hotel room door.
Exactly. You would never go to sleep in a strange city with the hotel door wide open, and you shouldn't go to sleep without checking the room for digital intruders.
Definitely not.
Now, I want to leave you with a final, somewhat chilling thought to mull over, building on what our sources mentioned about where this footage actually ends up. The sources point out that modern Wi-Fi cameras frequently upload and store these recordings indefinitely in massive cloud storage services.
Floating out there on remote servers, essentially forever.
Right. So if this invisible surveillance technology is silently uploading deeply private moments to infinite cloud storage architectures, what happens when those massive cloud services inevitably suffer data breaches? We see it in the news every week. Massive technology corporations getting hacked. When those digital vaults crack open, those stolen intimate moments captured from thousands of unsuspecting travelers in their most vulnerable states could be released into the public domain forever, completely outside of anyone's control.
Which means the victimization doesn't remain contained to the hotel room. It transforms into a permanent digital footprint created entirely without consent.
Which is terrifying.
It is.
Yes.
That is why prevention, at the point of entry finding the camera before you even undress, is really the only true defense mechanism we have left.
The stakes are incredibly high, and they are permanent. If this deep dive made you think differently about your personal safety while traveling, we strongly encourage you to share it with someone you know who is frequently on the road. Send it to that colleague who is always on a business trip, or your family member taking a solo vacation. Because the safest traveler isn't the luckiest one. The safest traveler is the most prepared. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, and most importantly, stay safe. And as always, stay tuned for the next episode.